Hello guys, I'm Orbator, and in this mission we are returning to craft the Kraken Hunters back from the mission that they undertook on their way to Jool. They are the Kerbals that landed on Pol and Bop. Their mission were to find and discover the origins of the Kraken, the fabled creature which tears apart the spacecraft that travel across our solar system. The first craft we are going to be returning is the Pol mission, and they landed on the Pol, basically, the moon around Jool, and they discovered all these, weird structures which look suspiciously like termite mounds. And here's me trying to land properly. It's quite hard, especially in a lower gravity, although at least we know that we're not going to crash because all we have to do is apply a lot more thrust, get high up, and then we can reorientate ourselves not to crash. In fact, if you were coming to the Jool system, I advise you first off go to Pol or Bop, one of those moons, because they have such low gravity that they're sort of like similar to Minmus. And in fact, if you want to test landing on them, just go to Minmus in the Kerbal system. I suppose the hardest part of them is that they are at a slight inclination to all the other moons. In other words, their orbits are tilted. That is the only difficulty part. However, I do suggest that you go to them two moons first. Anyway, here we are, we're launching, we're targeting the orbiter, because in every mission, I suggest you do this with yours. You create a separate lander and orbiter. That's what Apollo did, and there was a good reason for that, and that is because, one, you use a lot less fuel to land, and you can concentrate then all your fuel on the return craft, which doesn't need as much fuel for landing then. Although I have to admit I overbaked what I required to go back to Kerbal, and you'll see why that was a good idea, hopefully in this video. And I'm laughing because on the last mission we had lost 3 brave Kerbals. One of them was from a glitch from Kerbal, but before I realised that we had lost a Kerbal, I had already quick saved. The other 2 Kerbals were my fault completely. I had misjudged the speed at which we were entering the atmosphere, and the spacecraft partially disintegrated on every entry, destroying 2 of the pods and killing 2 brave Kerbals. But however, let's not do the same mistake again. This time, we will aim to enter the atmosphere of Kerbal at a lot lower rate. What it was, the real truth behind the dead Kerbals was I was using a Kerbal alarm clock, and I was using the return trajectory, not the return times, because you can add alarms, and for some reason it gave me a time which I think was not 100% correct. I'm not sure what's up with alarm clock, but from now on, if I'm going to use something like that, I'll probably use Mecca because it's a bit more accurate, or Flight Engineer, or even better, use the internet because it has a lot more tools on there, and it'll tell you the phase angle that you'll need to return to Kerbal or leave Kerbal for another moon or planet. Anyway, return times have been calculated correctly this time, and as you can see, we are getting a high elliptical orbit around Jool, but we're encountering one of the moons, so we're going to have to change our orbit inclination so we avoid that encounter, which will change our orbit again. What you want to do is you want to get into an orbit like this, get close to Jool, and then set yourselves for a return. In other words, you're using the Olbeth effect. That's the high gravity of Jool, which is pull you down, and because you're traveling faster and then you're firing engines while you're traveling faster, you'll get a much faster velocities and a much more efficient return. I'm not sure on the 100% on the science behind it or the math, but it works. It bloody hell works. Basically, I think what you're doing is you're using the gravitational pull as Jool is orbiting and pulling you across. The closer you are, the more gravitational pull it has on you. Therefore, it's pulling you faster, and you're using that faster speed as an accelerator. And that done, we leave Jool behind. Now, I'm not doing this mistake that I did last time, that I sent both the craft at the same time, which was a bit difficult because I had kept on switching back and forth between them, even though it may not look like it on the video. So this time I'm doing it one at a time, and I can concentrate on one craft. and hopefully this will work. Okay, let's set our course. First off, we need to burn off all the extra fuel, which I think was about 200 meters per second. Then we'll ditch the engine. Then we will open the heat shields, the inflatable heat shields, retract the solar panels because we don't need them, but we don't want it to burn up and then cause something else to go wrong. Then we'll bring up the spinning speed or the spinning of the spacecraft. Now, NASA actually do this. I'm not sure on re-entry, but they don't do it like this. Basically, they rotate the craft so it's like a bullet leaving a chamber again, where the spinning causes it to be much more stable. Although I don't think the physics in KSP are calculated that correctly. See, we lost a little bit of control, but at least we stayed upright. Now I was lucky that on this one, we were entering the atmosphere very slowly. But this is the other bit, decoupling the heat shields. Will they survive? No, we lost one of the pods. And as luck would have it, we don't have a Kerbal in it. That's right. This return spacecraft holds 9 Kerbals, but on this particular mission, we only sent 8 Kerbals. So that means, yes, we have successfully returned these Kerbals. That's it, they survived the entry into the ocean. Which they do. Awesome stuff. Normally, we disintegrate, and luckily the spacecraft, the command pods, I suppose you call them, survive much easily on this. Anyway, let's get to our other mission. The more important ones. These 3 Kerbals which are dancing across the surface of Bop, where we found the dead Kraken. Unknown was the origin of this dead Kraken. Are there any more? We can only assume that we will again be attacked by the deadly Kraken as we try to stop ourselves from crashing into the surface of Bop. It appears we don't actually need the help of the Kraken to destroy ourselves. Luckily, our expert pilot, which is Lucas B. Kerman here, yes, he decides to reduce the thrust of some of the engines there, and it appears to work. That means now we can get into orbit. Although we do realise that we are not in line with the orbit of the orbiting spacecraft, so yes, we're going to have to do some jiggery-pokery. Luckily, if you're on a low-gravity world, doing an inclination change to get an encounter with another spacecraft is quite easy and doesn't take as much fuel. So first things first, let's get into orbit. And then we get one of the Kerbals out. Luckily, he has a spanner. It detaches the monopropellant engines. The engine thrusters that I've got on this actually use the monopropellant, not the fuel inside the tanks. So let's detach them. Spinning out of control as we're trying to do it. Now we're not in orbit at the moment, so we have to quickly reorientate ourselves, quickly get into orbit. You can see we're heading down to the surface of Bop. But will the engine fire again to get us into orbit? Obviously it does because it's KSP, but in real life, it does not work that way. Like docking doesn't work in KSP. Now we saw in the last spacecraft, I was able to dock quite easy. I came in slowly, not using RCS to try to dock, tried to get us aligned properly, but every time I keep on bouncing off the docking port. I'm not sure where it was, because this was built in a previous save and I've uploaded it to the latest version of KSP. But that was rather annoying. In fact, I think I'd done double the amount of attempts to try and dock that than you saw. And as you can see, we have 4 Kerbals, including Bill. Oh yes, and let's dump those probes. And the reason why I didn't send those probes into orbit or anything is because, for some reason, I forgot to disable the, I've already got it, crossfeed. And because of that, it sucked the fuel out of those space probes. But now let's concentrate on the return of these Kerbals. Let's fire up those engines and return those Kerbals safely. Okay, so what we have to do again is what we did. We got this into high elliptical orbit around Jool at the right time, so we had the right angle. Then we thrusted as we passed the Jool, the planet Jool, and then thrusted towards Kerbal using the Allbirth effect. Magics. And you can see the clouds loading in there. And whenever you see that, you know I've done a quick save and a quick load. For some reason, the clouds do not appear after you do that. But let's see if the entry. We're coming in a lot hotter this time. Literally. And, oh dear. No, we're out of control. We lost 2 Kerbals. Okay, let's try this again. This time, let's do this properly. What I mean by doing this properly is I removed the Kerbals that were up in the couple of modules there. Okay, so it's doing the spinning effect, which seems to help quite a bit. Although, will it show? Yes, it was this one. One of the couple of modules do explode. And that is why I removed the Kerbals from the couple of modules. In other words, all the Kerbals survived because of our future seeing Kerbals. What excuse can I use for that? Quick loading, quick saver and quick loading. Okay, I can't. We saved the Kerbal on this adventure because we didn't stick with the original save. Well, how could you blame me? I've lost 3 Kerbals already on this mission. I didn't want to lose any more. Anyway, let's get these Kerbals down. We've lost a couple of parachutes from the couple of module. So when these fully open, will this survive? Luckily, this was redesigned with the decoupling method of the heat shields properly engineered. So not destroying the spacecraft does the decouple. And I think we have enough parachutes. Yeah, this was one also. We've added extra parachutes. So hey presto, we do survive. And here we have Daniel Sermon Kerman out on EVA, showing that he is in fact returned to Kerbin. Anyway, I am Orbator. Trust me, I am an engineer of returns.